What is going on, guys, and welcome to episode 23 of the Listen Whilst You Slept podcast. Today, we have Carl Taylor on the podcast. Carl reached out to me. We have a mutual friend who kind of moved over to Jersey, and he is a very, very knowledgeable man. So it's going to be super, super interesting to talk about a few things, all in kinds of relation to a bit of posture stuff today. And I'm sure we'll go down some little tangents because we always do. But I'm not going to give you too much of an intro, mate. Just want to kind of let the guys know who you are, what you do, and then kind of your journey into the fitness industry.
Yeah, man. Firstly, cheers for having me on. Been listening for a while and I'm a big fan of all the stuff you've been putting out. But yeah, quick background, like you said, basically from North Wales, growing up with a lad called Ewan for a long time. Obviously, you know him, I know him, big rugby guy. He's one of them, and obviously played alongside him with school rugby. I was fairly skinny at the time, so they just shoved me on the wing, as per usual. Quick guy, went out on the wing, just like the big boys do their stuff in it. But yeah, basically from North Wales, 21 years of age, look about 40, but yeah, there we go, that's life. But yeah, basically got into the industry through passion for sport, passion for fitness, like a lot of previous guests that you probably had on, constant battles with yo-yo dieting, perceptions of different things that are beneficial. And it's a case of educating myself and learning over the past couple of years that, not everything out there is as it seems. Sometimes you've got to dig a lot deeper, and that's what I've kind of went away and done. So did my A-levels back home before coming up to LJMU in Liverpool to do an undergrad in sports science, whilst obviously doing some internships along the way to gain some S&C experience and sports science experience, where then I graduated last year after having some issues throughout, which I'm sure we'll touch into. And now getting into the position where lockdown hits, everything goes on hold, and then just having to adapt. So that's basically where I set up this business, tapping into what everyone did, adapting to online coaching and trying to find a way to help individuals out there who don't have access to S&C coaches, don't have access to any sort of physical performance coaching within their club or local, as well as providing some information on, health, performance and posture, just like you said.
Yeah, I think it's so refreshing to see someone coming from, I think there's this big thing where people in the kind of PT space, they kind of stick to themselves, and then people in the S&C space, they kind of stick to themselves. There's never this crossover. So it's really refreshing to kind of see someone who's wanting to kind of merge them together and kind of get the best of both worlds and really kind of help people, one, look good, feel good, and then kind of bring that whole package together. I always say to my clients, you've got like kind of the 4 Ps. You've got physique, performance, personal, professional. If you can tick your boxes in all of those areas, then you'll be in a good, freaking good position, to say the least.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's like you were saying there, there's within both industries, there's always this perception of what's better, personal training or strength and conditioning. And you see it, whether it's going down a Facebook feed, whether it's going through LinkedIn, there's always back and forth between which is better, when in reality, it's just like coaching. There's a different method of coaching for different individuals. And like you said, it's that case of sometimes you need to merge both of them together to get the best for that individual.
Yeah, exactly. Comes down to what works for that best for that client and what they can stick to at the end of the day. But what we really wanted to kind of touch on today was just a bit about posture. Okay, I get a hell of a lot of questions about posture, and I'll be open and honest, it's not my complete area of expertise. Obviously, I've got a reasonable understanding about it. But mate, what is posture?
Well, posture to an extent, it can be different in lots of ways. There's people's perception of posture is different depending on, which way they look at it, whether it's posture because they're slouching, whether it's posture when they're moving. To me, I look at competencies within movement. My background as an S&C coach, and my growing experience of what I do is identifying, right, the purpose, what's the cause, why is their posture like this? A lot of people you'll see will have an anterior pelvic tilt. It's commonly diagnosed as, pushing the hips forward. There's a big bend in the lower back or the lumbar spine, otherwise known as, lordosis. But the main reason that, I reached out and wanted to talk about this is, I put a post up the other day that there's a big perception that people can cure the postural competencies and the deficiencies within posture by quick fixes. And it's never the case. Posture is a direct cause of habitual behaviors. If you sat down at a desk all day, you're going to be rounding at the shoulders. And, yourself as an online coach, you spend a lot of time at a computer. So it's getting up, making sure you're moving, making sure you're activating their muscles and strengthening the weak areas, which is really important.
Yeah, that was a big one for me, like transitioning from doing like 60 hours a week of PT to now spending like 60 hours a week sat behind a computer. I definitely noticed like my posture, and even like I find myself now just like throughout the day slumping down this chair, getting lower and lower and lower. Just getting a lot tighter, and I've had to be really kind of proactive with things and making sure I'm staying on top of some massage work, a lot more mobility work and things like that. But people who don't have the best posture, what are the disadvantages of it? What's the downside of things? How can it affect their performance, and then how can it affect their life?
In terms of general health, you see people spending a lot more time on the phones. You see people spending a lot more time at their desk, especially in lockdown and not being able to get out. That habitual nature is making people have, one, decreased posture, but two, an unawareness of how to improve that posture over time. Like we were saying before we hopped on, people are always looking for quick fixes for problems that can't be dealt with a quick fix. And initially, taking a step back and just looking at, right, what's the issue here? Well, the issue is you're spending a lot of time at the desk, your head's forward, and you end up in this hunched over position looking like a king prawn where, how's that going to change if you don't change? And it's a case of, right, get up, break up the daytime, yourself, steps.
Oh, yeah.
It's a case of just breaking it up, and then looking for the information out there to make the change. People with an anterior pelvic tilt, like we said before, they're always looking for, either neck brace, back braces. They're looking for stuff they can put on their desk to help them, which is good, and it's a start. But directly making changes in your training and within your lifestyle is going to be the main influence of how that change occurs. But yeah, man, especially with performance, range of motion is a big one. If you're hunched over all the time and your shoulders are rolled forward anteriorly and you've got some of that scapular winging going on, when you're trying to get deep into a bench press, you're always going to have that pressure of, right, now the pressure's on my shoulders rather than on my chest. I can't feel this. And when you're trying to prescribe exercises to people as well, it's a case of, right, how can I optimize the range of motion of this exercise without absolutely getting rid of the stable base of support that's helping them get into them positions?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think it's something that people just really aren't aware of, or people see a photo of themselves, they go, oh yeah, my posture looks bad, but then just don't take a conscious awareness in everyday life at all. Touching on what you said about kind of breaking up the day, something that I've been doing recently has been freaking game changing, is I've been working like either in like 70 minutes or like 50-minute blocks, and it's been incredible. So like earlier on the day, I'll do like 70 minutes with 10 minutes break, and then later on the day, I'll do like 50 minutes work, 10 minutes rest. And I've got probably more work done within that 50 minutes than I would done anyway, just by breaking up, but then also just naturally getting outside, getting some fresh air. I just literally like walk to the end of my drive or walk around my garden. Just my lower back, my neck, and all these little things that may have popped up in the past have definitely been a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, and I've always struggled with it myself, going from a relatively skinny guy to then becoming 16 and a half stone within about 6 months of being at uni, to then trying to sort myself back out. My mobility has gone up and down throughout, and it's one of them things that people, especially within the personal training industry, especially because if it doesn't have a direct impact on your performance, then why do people care? Because performance isn't normally the outcome. It's aesthetics, it's mental stuff, and especially within body transformation or physique specialist guys, physique posture can have a big influence, whether it makes you look a bit more bloated, whether it brings out your chest a bit more, whether it enables you to retract and depress your scapula to engage your lats or your rhomboids. It can have an effect on both sides of the coin. And it's like you said, just having that awareness and that understanding of, right, I can do this and it's going to help me, not detriment me. And if I just spend 5 minutes a day, like you said, breaking up the day with a walk, standing desk or a makeshift standing desk, then sitting down rather than spending all the time sitting down.
Massively. I think the other thing that massively, I'm sure you're guilty of it when you're younger as well. Me, you don't think about longevity. I was at 16 years old. I was not thinking about longevity when I looked like a cat taking a shit doing that deadlift. But like as you get a bit older and things like that, and then like I see even like now, I see my parents, like my dad struggle with his back or little things like that. It makes you just think about it now, and just even from a training longevity, like if I couldn't train, I'd be the grumpiest guy alive. Like I want to be able to train for longer, and just having these little cues and being conscious would massively help. Mate, one question which I always get, and what's the difference between flexibility and mobility?
So flexibility is the range of motion surrounding a joint, whereas mobility is the range of motion within muscles. So, you can be flexible but not mobile. And that's where the change comes across. You see people doing sit and reach tests saying I'm flexible, but when it comes to doing an RDL, they haven't got the mobility within the hamstring to enable them to lengthen at a position where they can, touch the bar past the knees. Yeah. So in fact, what they end up doing then is either bending the knees further and restricting the lengthening state of the hamstrings, or end up just coming up on their toes or whatever it may be to compensate for that. And, there's no massive quick fix for mobility. And one thing I do want to put out there is, you see a lot of these mobility gurus online or yoga gurus that go out and say, right, do all these, cat cows, do all these prone cobras every morning as part of a morning routine. It's a start, but especially within performance, if you add a bit of load onto a bar, you're going to hit a deeper squat. You're going to be able to, get deeper into an RDL, but you're not going to be able to maintain stability in them positions. And when you're thinking of things like force transfer, bracing, stuff like that, it's like you'll see people load up a heavy dead or a heavy squat and they'll hit the bottom, they'll get all shaky, they'll push through it and then get to the top. And you think, oh, that's not going to be good for the lower back. And, we've all been guilty of it, me and myself included. Like, back when I was younger, especially thinking, right, I'm a skinny guy, but if I can just focus on getting bigger legs or, just focus on being a bit stronger, it's going to help me long term. I'll rack up whatever it may be on the bar, hit low, knees are shaking everywhere, looking like I'm about to shit myself, and then pop back up, do one rep, and that's it, re-rack. And then I walk away with a bad lower back and then got absolute sore lower back for 3 days. It's not efficient.
No. And then it affects the rest of your training session, so you can't even lie on a bench like.
No, exactly.
We've all been there. Yeah, I think it's such an important point. What's your go-to point for people who are struggling with that kind? I think that anterior pelvic tilt is probably one of the most common. We'll kind of get onto some kyphosis surrounding the shoulders. Yeah. What's your kind of go-to kind of like maybe a little bit of an assessment that people can do themselves, and then like moving on from that, like how can people go around like kind of seeing where they need to improve and how to actually improve it?
Yeah, well, the first thing about an anterior pelvic tilt is, it's people are the body naturally has a curve within that lower spine. And some people it's more excessive than others, but it's when you can noticeably see that the pelvis is tilted by, whether their glutes are pushed out or whatever it may be. Now, and this most of the time is just caused by muscular imbalance. People will think, oh, my spine's just naturally like that, or it's just how I am. And, people will try and justify it in different ways, but muscles are the prime movers. Muscles move everything else. And, if you've got weak muscles and strong muscles, like you'll know from your experience, that creates competencies, and competencies over time lead to that posture. So first thing would be just do some unilateral stuff. See, right, is your left leg weaker than your right leg? Is your left hamstring weaker than your right hamstring? And, you can do that through many different tests just by standing up against a wall and just rolling forwards. Right, my left hamstring feels a lot tighter than my right hamstring. Most of the time it's down to a lot of tension in hamstring, weak quads. So you've got a very, very tense posterior, and the anterior is very weak. So you end up just rolling forward into that position.
Yeah, big time. I think it's just people aren't aware of it. I generally especially like everyday people, we're talking like general population here. I think literally like 90% of back issues could be solved from doing a couch stretch, doing like a pigeon stretch and a hamstring stretch. And then my big thing for people is like, I always say, like, it's one thing you increasing your flexibility, but if you then don't solidify that by getting strong through that full range of motion, you're not going to get the lasting results you want.
Yeah, no, and I see that a lot when you see people who have limited dorsiflexion, limited ankle mobility when trying to do squats. One, they'll either just get rid of the squat completely, which on a performance standpoint is absolutely crucial. I've got a lecturer in uni at the minute who, is the absolute god of back squats, Dave Clark, and every lecture it's back squat, back squat, back squat. And it's true because it
sounds like my kind of lecture. That's all I hope. If I could just squat all the time, I'll be fine.
Well, the thing that I've learned from it is, people have this idea in their heads that, weightlifting is going to make you slow and it's going to inhibit your performance. But when you're looking at derivatives from, a counter movement jump or a squat jump or whatever, they're going to be the movements that are going to give you bang for your buck, the compounds that are going to help you, both on a physical training standpoint, but performance standpoint as well. And if you're compensating in that movement by, putting foam pads underneath your ankles to elevate your mobility in your ankles to get deeper into a squat, yeah, that's great from a personal training and physical standpoint, but you're never going to have them blocks underneath your ankles when you're trying to do a 20-meter sprint to get a ball on a football pitch. It's that carryover that I try and nail into all the people I coach. Doing stuff like that's a good starting point to get comfortable in them positions, but then adding load to the bar and being stable in them positions and working on, right, how can I make this a position that I can always get into and always use this range of motion is a massive one for me.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your take on kind of foam rolling stuff?
I personally really enjoy it. I do it with a lot of the lads at Tranmere. I do it with a lot of my clients. My fast release is a really good one, especially with developing mobility. The big thing is a lot of contrasting scientific literature out there saying, it's useless, it's not really that good, it inhibits performance if you do it before you're doing any power sessions, but if you look at the other contrasting literature as well, it says that, well, it improves your mobility by 20% for about 20, 30 minutes. But from a neuromuscular standpoint, does it make you feel more comfortable going into the session? Does it make you feel more prepared? And that's my big takeaway from it. If the athlete or the individual feels more comfortable going into a session and more confident going into a session, that's what's going to get them through the session. You hear it quite a lot. You can be really talented and have really crap mentality, and you're not going to get anywhere. Where the roles are reversed and you haven't got that much talent, but you've got the mindset to really dig through them sessions and do the work that's needed, you're going to get a lot further than that other person.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've said this so many times on the podcast. My personal belief is that the most important thing, whether it be general population trying to achieve a transformation or Ronaldo, the most important thing is buy-in. If that person believes something's going to work, guess what? It probably will. If they don't think it's going to work, then hey. I think a lot of people, they can create kind of foam rolling, myofascial release, anything like that can become by kind of habit, and it's just their trigger to be able to switch on mentally or switch off if they're doing it after training sessions and recover. Sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system just to allow a bit better recovery and different things like that. So I definitely think it's massively important for people to kind of work on. Okay, so give me your top 3 tips for someone who would be struggling with kind of anterior pelvic tilt.
One would be ignore all the quick fads, all the crap that you see from influencers. All that stuff's never going to work. They're trying to get you to buy a product and not buy into the process of achieving what you want to achieve. 2 would be to probably hire a coach, someone that knows about the issue, someone that knows how to create the change. And 3 would be to stick at it. You're not going to change muscles over a quick period of time. It's just like trying to build muscle. You can't create stretch in the muscle. You can artificially do it by using foam rollers, by using Theraguns, by activating muscles, but to create long-term postural changes and mobility changes, it takes time. You just got, like you said, you've got to buy into the process. Whether that be 5 minutes before training, 5 minutes after training, whether it be a half an hour session in the evening of yoga, it's whatever suits you. Like it is with all training, like you said before, the best type of training or the best type of nutrition is one that someone's going to stick to for a long amount of time and something they enjoy, rather than throwing in the gold standard that's not going to work.
Yeah, big time. So this is the thing, like this kind of stuff, it isn't sexy, it's not manly, it's not like, this is why people don't do it though. So what's your go-to with clients to get them to do this shit?
The main thing I do is I add it in as part of the warm-up, and especially at Tranmere, with the youth lads, they don't like it whatsoever. Not many athletes like mobility stuff because, like you said, it's not sexy. They like doing the heavy squats, they like doing the fast sprints, and like clients on the general population side as well, they want to get to the session, they want to do the cardio session, they want to do the HIIT session, they want to do the weight session. So if you can disguise it in the warm-up or within the cool-down, cat's out the bag here to all the people that have got it in their warm-up or the cool-down, so stick with me. That's one way that I find is really useful because, when people think of mobility, it's like I said before, they think of the prone cobras, they think of, you know, the cat cows, and they think they're going to absolutely look really ridiculous doing it. But if you look at people online, it's starting to grow. You know, the mold is starting to be kind of changed in terms of, right, what's the best way to do a ramp preparation before you know, a session. You see people like the Australian strength coach. Have you heard of him much?
Yeah, the guys, love him.
You know, people have different perceptions of, you know, bird dogs before squats. Is that really going to brace the lumbar more than just doing the movement? You know, it's like we said before. Are you going to feel like you can activate your core a lot better doing them bird dogs rather than just sitting at the bottom of a squat where you feel uncomfortable and you think, what the hell am I doing? I'm in the middle of a gym floor. Everyone's looking at me. I'm taking up the squat rack and I'm just sat here doing, you know, bird dogs. But it's like you said, merging the practicality and the applied nature of what can you do to achieve what you want to achieve before going into that session, and is that long term going to help you get to where you need to be? And it's like you said, buying's the most important thing. If they're not buying into it, you know, online coaching can be one of them things where if you're not there in the session with them, you know, if they ain't got the right mindset, they might just skip all of that and move into the session, and then down the line and say, oh, I'm hurting a bit here, and you get sent a video of what they're doing, and it's like, right, well, you're not bracing your core enough, you're not activating your core enough. So if you're not doing that beforehand from the activation stuff and then warm up, then you're now seeing the direct impact of that within the session, if you get me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's massive. And then when we look at that from kind of like a habitual point of view, and we look at kind of like habit stacking and things like that, that'd be my go-to, is attach it to a habit that you already have.
Yeah.
Like particularly either like morning, evening routine, that can be a good one, or pre or post workout. Personally, I'll do mine after workout, and that's my time to kind of chill. I know I need to get better at it because my shoulders are like chocolate. hence the reason I'm not playing rugby anymore. But yeah, obviously we've kind of spoken about that kind of lordosis, the kind of, and that. How about kyphosis? So for people who don't know, kyphosis is kind of rounding up a back, shoulders rounding forward. Because I think those would obviously be the two most common. Especially in this.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like we touched on before, you know, the growing nature of today's climate where we're in lockdown, we're constantly on our phones, we're constantly at laptops, we're always sat down at desks. You know, online coaches, especially when I got into doing this, I didn't realise the amount of time I'd be at my desk, or when I got into being an S&C coach, the amount of time I'd be sat programming and monitoring around the laptop. And, you know, I've really started to notice it, especially like I said before, when I'm going into movements like bench presses, like shoulder presses, I can't get into the requisite range of motion where I can effectively press, and I'm losing so much force production, I'm losing so much energy trying to get into them positions, and it's very again, a lot of misinformation. People will be wearing chest braces to try and pull their shoulders back. You know, why on earth are you doing that? No offense to anyone out there that's doing it, but you know, it's not going to work for you. It's just going to try and be a shortcut, like a cheat code on GTA. It's not going to fix your long-term issues. A lot of people again think, you know, it comes from, right, I've got weak rear delts, right? When you look at your posterior chain, especially in the upper body, why is the rear delt, which is probably one of the smallest muscles in there, going to be the main cause of all of that? And it's like we said before, it's learning there's compensations for what you do. Me especially, like I said, when I was younger and I was a skinny lad, all I used to do was train legs, because I used to be a footballer, I used to be a rugby player, you know, I used to do lots of lower body work, so I was strong there. And you stick to what you're good at the start, so I was always training legs. And then it got to the point where I was good, really strong on legs, and I couldn't lift 15 kg each arm on a bench press, or I couldn't lift, you know, anything upper body. And then I found that because my lower body was so strong, I started to, like I said before, be postural. I'd roll over at the shoulders. I'd have that kyphosis like we're speaking about. And it's a case of, like I said before, investing in a coach that knows what the process is and buying into what they're trying to do and what they're trying to achieve with you. Because at the end of the day, it's because you've put a lot of time and emphasis onto the anterior side rather than the posterior side. And it's finding that balance in between and trying to build that bridge to make it better.
Yeah, it's assessing, evaluating, seeing what the problem is, and then putting a plan in place that's actually going to help you kind of fix it. But then my big thing is a lot of people will kind of do that and they'll completely neglect what they still got as a strength. Like, no, keep your strength.
Yeah.
But let's say like, so I do that. Like I'm same as you, because rugby background, literally all I did was train lower body, like especially from a young age. Like I didn't bench press until I was like 16. Literally just squat, deadlift, up, do some weighted press ups. That's as close as you're getting to bench press. But yeah, I found it a massive difference as soon as I started doing that. I definitely struggled with some kyphosis, especially as I played a lot of tennis when I was younger as well. Everything's anteriorly. I definitely think that led to some of my shoulder injuries, which I had in the last few years that I played rugby, just one after the other, which is, if I had been more knowledgeable and, hey, I'll put my hands up and followed the coaches a little bit closely, probably wouldn't have had as many issues as I had. So it is massively important that people do listen and take this advice on, for the sake of 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes after your workouts. The knock-on effects that you can have from this are literally like black and white. And I quite often don't think people realize how, what's the word? How do I put this? They don't realize how bad they feel until they feel good.
Yeah.
That's the big one for me.
And I think a big thing, just going off what you said there, is, don't neglect your strengths. If you're strong at bench pressing, just training your back isn't going to inhibit how good your bench pressing is. If anything, it's going to make it even better, because you can stabilize better in different parts. You've got better range of movement to get to them lower positions and press from. It's not going to mean that you're detrimenting any part of your strengths to try and fix your weaknesses. It's like you were just saying then, own your strengths, but make sure you're giving your weaknesses a lot of time to then build them into your strengths also.
Yeah, we're only as strong as our weakest part, and I think that was one of the biggest things that kind of had my bench press stall, is that my back just wasn't strong enough. Strong lats, but like up middle back, like middle traps, just was nowhere near strong enough. So I really struggled to stay retracted. But on that, like if people are wanting to kind of put maybe their strength on hold a little bit and work on those weaknesses, like for me, all I did was I went push pull legs, push pull. So I'd still had my 2 times a week frequency and kind of upper body, but I just put my legs into 1 times per week, just till I kind of caught up a little bit. And hopefully we're getting there slowly. My legs won't shrink, but I'm trying to get them to. But mate, you kind of touched on, you went through your own pretty crazy transformation by the sounds of it. Be interesting to kind of touch on that.
So basically, whoever knows me, I was never the biggest lad in school. I was always quite skinny, always wanted to get bigger. I was always in the gym lifting, but like a lot of people that are listening to this podcast probably didn't know how, always picked all the wrong ways. I remember especially going through sixth form when I was like trying to do a bulk. I say bulk in quotations. I was eating a whole baguette a day with 3 chocolate bars from the shop. But I still wasn't gaining any weight, and I was doing an A level in sport, and I was like, right, what's going on here? I was like, I must just have a really fast metabolism. And in reality, I wasn't training hard enough. I wasn't eating enough, and it got to the point where I went then to university, and beforehand I was playing football 2 to 3 times a week. I was doing after school sports, whether it be cricket, whether it be athletics. I was doing all this work, and my energy expenditure was just so high at the time, and I didn't even realize it, because that's just who I was at that time. And then I came into first year uni, all that left, and all I found was alcohol on a Saturday, freshers. And just getting into that first 6 months at uni, I did no training whatsoever, and I was on a sports science degree, and I just felt like an absolute fraud. And it was crazy, because you don't notice the weight gain until you step on that scale, until you catch an angle in the mirror and you think, Jesus Christ, what have I become type thing. It was at that point I went from a relatively skinny lad to gaining about 6.5 stone within the space of about 6 months. And I was like, wow, like this needs to change. And, a lot of people, when they think of a transformation, they think, right, it's how do I look? How have I got there? When in reality, I'm thinking, right, my productivity has gone down because I feel so sluggish all the time. I don't want to go to the gym because I think people are going to stare at me and think, right, what's he doing type thing. And I just want to put out there as well, gym environments can be so helpful when you're trying to get into that state of pushing towards a goal or trying to go on a fat loss journey. I used to go into a gym when I was a skinny lad thinking everyone's looking at me thinking, why is he so skinny? I then went into the gym when I was a bigger lad and thought, right, everyone's staring at me because I've gone so big. But in reality, everyone's gone there to improve themselves, and everyone's gone there to fix any flaws that they think they have. And it's such a supportive environment because everyone's there striving for similar goals, or if not the same goal. And gym environments can be so helpful because if you don't know something, someone will come up to you and say, all right, this is how you do this exercise properly when I've been doing it wrong for so long. Or they'll come up and say, oh, have you tried doing this? And, it changes your whole way of thinking. And it's such a small thing, when you think of the grand scheme of what a transformation is, and I know you touched on this a few podcasts ago, but just from my standpoint is I felt like a fraud because, you know, I was doing a sports science degree when I wasn't sporty. You know, I felt like I was a fraud. But then the mental side of things, my productivity was low, my self-confidence was low. And then from that, when I started to see a change, all the mental stuff around it changed. I became more productive. I became, you know, I wanted to go to the gym and improve. And it took away all that extra stress that was around the stigma of me being this big lad and put it into practice where now I am where I am because of all that stuff. And I don't look back and think, oh, like, you know, if I did this, I could have been this far along in my journey. I don't look back and think, you know, if I could have done this better, I could have changed a lot quicker. I look back and think, right, that was a big part of my life. And, you know, it's made me who I am today. So embrace, you know, any flaws you got and just try and knuckle down and think this is how I'm going to fix them. It takes a lot of mindset. It takes a lot of control. It takes a lot of accountability. But at the end of the day, that's one big thing that coaches are there for. They're there for your downs as well as they are there for your ups. And people have got this stigma around going for coaching to try and, you know, put this positive face on. You know, if you've done badly in the week and you don't want to do your check-in and you think your coach is going to have a go at you for it, that's the last thing they're there to do, because that's when they're there to pick you up.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Well, all hats off to you. It sounds awesome, mate. And we had very similar stories. Like, I look at my first transformation, I would not be in the position where I am with aesthetic strength, with my own personal growth and things like that. It wasn't from that, because I learned so much about myself, did a photo shoot, one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And there's no way I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't have gone, enough's enough. And then I learned so much along that process from a coaching point of view, because for me, I'd always been in okay shape. I was never absolutely shredded, but I was always in reasonable shape. But just having that little insight as to how a lot of my clients feel, I feel now I can kind of go in people's mindset and kind of help them kind of really work on a lot of stuff. My personal opinion is the difference between, when talking Gen Pop here, people who the difference get an awesome transformation, the people who just get either a mediocre or they don't get a transformation, it comes down to one thing, and it's just mindset. Literally, mindset is the biggest difference between everything, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm fully with you there, and I've just realised halfway through that I wasn't even connected to this microphone that's been sat in front of me this whole time. That's probably why you just heard me cough.
It sounds all right though. Technical
crap.
difficulties, love it.
Yeah, Zoom for you just goes to sum up the year that we've had, doesn't it?
Oh mate, don't. I was due to be going to Dubai in a couple of weeks, but that's all been cancelled now, which is a bit of a nightmare, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, mate. You'll have to get over to Jersey in the summer or something like that. Be good.
Yeah, well, my obviously my girlfriend's family, she's got family over there in Jersey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they own a restaurant or something over there. I completely forgot what it's called. Duck and something. I completely lost it from the top of my head. I'll have to ask her and get back to you. But yeah, no, I'm definitely looking to get over there.
Mate, do it. It'd be awesome. Mate, and then just to wrap things up, 3 things that your 3 top tips for people looking to crush their fitness journey in 2021, whether that be performance, fat loss, whatever it might be. Your 3 top tips.
So, first of all, be patient. You know, nothing that's hard earned is ever going to come in a matter of weeks, and that's one reason why I don't coach anyone for less than 2 months. You know, like, as much as Gymshark go out there and say there's 66 days, all that stuff, you know, habit building does take time. So don't think it's going to come quickly. There's going to be dips. There's going to be parts where you're really smashing it, but just stick with the process and buy into exactly what is there. Number 2, stick to information, scientific information, stuff that you've not heard of an influencer who's been on Geordie Shore or been on a popular reality TV show, because 1, they don't have a clue what they're actually saying, and 2, they're getting paid to promote something, you know, from a financial standpoint. And that's probably not going to help you get to where you need to be. You know, you know it as well as I know it. You know, supplements are there to supplement all the hard work that goes on. It's not there to change your life. And all these, you know, ketone jabs, or whether it be skinny tea shakes or detoxing teas, you know, it absolutely does my head in.
Shit yourself, shakes.
Yeah, no, literally, they're like, oh, I'm going on a detox. It was like, well, you know, take a few laxatives. It does the same thing. By the way, I'm not actually advocating to go out there and take a few laxatives. It's just figure of speech, guys.
Just on that supplement things, guys, there's a website called examine.com, And any supplement that you ever are going to buy, just stick it in there, and they take all the complicated research and they literally make it like idiot proof. Okay. So for anyone is looking for supplements, I'll be open and honest. I spent so much money on supplements when I was younger and just wasted useless shit thinking, yeah, if I take this protein shake, I'm going to get massive, bro. Everyone does, but I wish I had something like this to tell me to not. And then also just something, and I knew about a tool like Examine, where if I was like curious about something, I wanted to know a little bit more information, I could literally just pop the name in there and it gives you all the scientific study broken down super, super simple.
Just touching on that as well, for any athletes, whether you be amateur, whether you be semi-pro, whether you be professional, don't take any supplements that aren't informed sport. That's going to absolutely detriment you down the line. You may be thinking taking this really cool weight gainer shake's going to put tons of muscle on you, when in fact it's got something in it that then bans you for 3 years because you didn't know it was in there. So if you're going to go out there and get certain supplements, make sure they're safe and make sure they're not there just as a supplement, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Then what's your last one? One more, hit me.
Last one would be have structure, have routine, hire a coach or follow a plan, whether it be hiring a coach and getting the most out of it you can, or be following some plan that's been put there by someone who knows what they're talking about. A lot of coaches within the industry will put out plans, will put out help books, will put out e-guides perfectly for free, and then if it's a case of, right, you want to learn more about it, then get in touch with them. It doesn't have to be me, doesn't have to be Simon, doesn't have to be anyone, but, just getting someone to help you through the process and stop you from making the mistakes that we've done is going to be the best thing to help you progress, especially when just starting out.
Yeah. Ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. I'm going to say a funny story here. I once had a client. I sent over like a rough meal plan. I don't believe in like structured meal plans where I'm like, you can only eat this because it's just not realistic. You're never going to stick to it. We always give like this is roughly what a day should look like. Okay. And obviously it had like 150 grams of raw chicken. I had an email back like, do you really want me to eat raw chicken? And I was like, this is my prime example client. There's no such thing as a silly question, because anyone think that was a really stupid question. But if he immediately asked it and he didn't eat raw chicken, it was a good question in my eyes. This is another thing, like from another coaching point of view,
100%.
Like, you've got to remember to make things clear for your clients, because when coaches kind of invest into you, anything that comes out your mouth, if they're a good client, they're going to be like, right, I've got this, I'm going to go. So just any coaches out there listening, just make sure you're clear with shit with your client.
Same from my end. I've got a funny story about that as well. A client had sent me a message, just like you, don't buy into any structured meal plans saying you should eat this at this time. Give them some guidelines of when's the best time to eat it. But, in our case, whenever's best for them. But I'd put down this client to have their post-workout meal, and it was, I think it was about 60 grams of Cocoa Pops and a protein shake. They basically just put the scoop of protein on top of the shake and just made the Cocoa Pops like normal and turned into a big mud bath. And, it's just like you said, make sure it's clear. After that, I said, make sure you make your protein shake and just pour it in, because, that's going to taste absolutely disgusting. And being a chef for 5 years, that they were probably thinking, what has he done to me here?
Love it. Absolutely love it. I'm sure we could talk about weird coaching stories for flipping hours. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I know I've got one coach I know, he had someone who was eating just dry rice. I was like, mate, that must have been so hard to eat. It must have been stuck in your teeth and everything. But mate, wrapping up, honestly, thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure there's a lot of insightful stuff that a lot of people can take away from that. Do you want to just let everybody know where they can find you? Obviously, I'll leave everything in the description below, but over to you, mate.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's been great to come on and, let everyone know who I am, what I'm about, and, put some of the myths and misconceptions within this industry, not to bed, but to give them a bit of insight of, what are the right ways about it. At the minute, you can find me on Instagram at the KWT Health and Performance _ at the end. If you just type in that KWT, I should probably pop up. And yeah, Instagram's the main place I am at the minute. Website should be coming shortly. So yeah, if you're interested in any one-to-one online coaching or S&C coaching, just get in touch and we can have a chat.
Yeah, absolutely love it, mate. Guys, thank you for listening. Make sure you share this to Instagram stories, tag both of us. And then also, if you're kind enough, leave us a review, and I will see you in the next one.